Welcome. My name is Delia Shen. I am one of the co-chairs of the New York chapter of the Washu Asian Alumni Network, better known as Wuan. I graduated from Washu in 2015 with my Bachelor of Arts from the School of Arts and Sciences. I'm excited to welcome our alumni, parents, current students, and friends to today's program featuring Jason Wang. We had close to 400 registrants for this evening's event. Our audience is diverse with attendees viewing from 29 states and 6 countries. Alumni are representative of all 7 schools. Now, before we begin, I'd like to explain the format for today's session. You will only hear and see me, our moderator, and Jason Wang. Our presentation will last about 1 hour. We encourage you to participate and interact by introducing yourself in the chat box, telling us where you're from and how you're affiliated with the university. Please make sure your introductions are sent to everyone and not just the panelists. There's a pull down when using the chat box, which allows you to set to panelists and all attendees. We also encourage you to ask questions at any time. To do that, type a question in the Q&A box during the talk. The webinar is being live streamed and recorded on the Washington University Alumni Association YouTube channel. Before we get started, I'd like to tell you about the Washu Asian Alumni Network. WUAN supports Asian and Asian American alumni by focusing on 3 primary activities. 1, providing ongoing opportunities for the personal and professional development of both alumni and students. 2, advocacy for issues relevant to the Asian and Asian American communities affiliated with WashU in student life or university affairs. And 3, facilitating engagement with the greater Asian and Asian American communities outside of WashU through service and philanthropy. Please learn more about WUAN or get involved by following the links in the chat box. I'd like to now introduce today's moderator, Eric Yin. Eric Yin is a Senior Associate Director of Advancement for the McKelvey School of Engineering. A 2004 graduate, Eric has worked for WashU since 2011. He has been involved with WUAN for several years and has hosted the reunion WUAN reception on numerous occasions. He's an enormous fan of Xi'an famous foods and eats at one of Jason's restaurants as often as he can when he's in New York. Please welcome Eric.
Thank you, Delia. Enormous fan is an understatement. Really excited to introduce Jason Wang today. Xi'an native Jason Wang grew up in New York City and attended Washington University in St. Louis with plans to pursue a corporate career. When his father, a veteran of Chinese kitchens, opened the first Xi'an famous foods in 2005 to sell dishes based on family recipes, Jason saw the potential for the business and was excited to help the restaurant grow. At one point, he even experimented with dishes in his dorm room here at WashU. Following a short corporate stint after graduation, Jason decided to fully invest himself in Xi'an famous foods, learning every aspect of the business from the ground up. Since 2009, he has expanded that first hole in the wall to a chain with locations across the New York City area. Through these restaurants, Jason delivers a dining experience that appeals to both Chinese families who come expecting authenticity to foodies looking to explore new flavors. Jason graduated from Washington University in St. Louis in 2009 with multiple majors in finance, marketing, entrepreneurship, and international business. He has garnered numerous awards for his restaurants, including being named nominee for Outstanding Restaurateur for the James Beard Awards 2020, Zagat's 30 Under 30, Forbes 30 Under 30, Crane's 40 Under 40, and an Eater.com Young Gun. Please join me in welcoming Jason Wang.
Hey everyone, can everyone hear me okay? I just want to make sure, first of all, we don't have any technical issues. All right, wonderful. I've been reading everyone's intros. Thanks for typing those in. It's really personal and it feels nice to hear where everyone's from, and thanks for joining us. I'm pretty excited. So this is my home kitchen. I'm in Chelsea and Manhattan, and as you can tell, we don't have a ton of space here, but I figured, I'll just bring something from home, a dish that I cook very often myself today. And just basically what we're gonna do right now is, I hope you already have that recipe list of all the ingredients that the network has sent you ahead of time. And what we're gonna do is I'm gonna go right into the cooking with the mise en place and ready to go. If you have any questions, Eric will probably just holler in my ear, and I'll slow down or I'll speed up, whatever, I'll explain. And once we get to a certain point, we're gonna let it cook. We're gonna step away from the kitchen for a sec. Eric's gonna moderate, and we're just gonna chat. And then we'll have some Q&A. By the time we're done, pretty much the food is done, and it's time for dinner. So that's how it's gonna work today. And again, thanks for joining. I know a lot of you guys are, I think some of you I went to school with. For those I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, it's my pleasure to show you just the one simple dish from our book. And I encourage you to, learn more through our website, xianfoods.com. We actually do ship a lot to various regions now, especially in the East Coast, but we ship nationwide through GoBelly as well. So you could really try some of our dishes either from the book, or if you want to, order like a meal kit, which saves you trouble preparing a lot of the ingredients. So anyways, enough plugs. I'm gonna go right into it. So we're gonna do the Hongxiao Paigu, Hongxiao red braised spare ribs. It's a very long name in English today. It's a very simple dish. It looks intimidating when you're looking at it in the book. It looks very pretty and very succulent, juicy ribs. It's very easy to make. That's why I make it all the time. So what we're gonna do is, I'm just gonna read right from this because I wanna make it exactly how you make it. So right now, I'm hoping everyone already has their ingredients. So hopefully you're in the kitchen or around, or you're just watching, following along. So right here we have the spices. I like to put all my spices in one plate because they're gonna go in at the same time anyways, right? So we got the star anise, got the cinnamon stick here. We're gonna break that, or it doesn't matter because the flavor will come out. Bay leaves, little cloves, which you can't really see, but they're there. So that's exactly to the recipe. And then we also have, I like to keep the Szechuan peppercorns separate. People ask me, do you want to use the green ones or the red ones? The red ones are more common. Green ones are a little more spicy. So usually we go with the dried red ones here. Right. And then other stuff we have, the Shaoxing cooking wine, which comes from this. So usually it comes in these glass bottles. It says cooking wine on it. Very essential for cooking meats. Just some sugar, regular white sugar, nothing crazy. And soy sauce. You can use, don't use mature soy sauce, of course. For those that don't know, there's differences. Just go with the regular soy sauce. I use this, pretty easy to get, the Lee Kum Kee brand. You could use any soy sauce, really. It doesn't really matter. You could use Kikkoman, you could use anything. Every soy sauce has its own little advertising quirks, but it's pretty much about the same. All right, so I have all these ingredients here. And of course, we gotta have our ribs. Now, my dad actually dropped me off this yesterday. It's a, the ribs, it's not cut yet, but you could get a cut. Usually it's cut in the grocery store. It's packed in the styrofoam. It's already cut like this into pieces, but it's not that hard to cut. Basically, I'm just gonna finish up over here. Make sure you cut right in between the, where the bones are. This is a big guy, but it's not a big deal. So we're cutting
Jason,
it, and we're just, yeah.
While you're cutting, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to ask you a quick question that came in. We have somebody who bought the ingredients but accidentally bought beef ribs instead of pork. Can they still use them?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
I was gonna say, when I was thinking what recipe to use for this demo, I was thinking, I don't want to turn people away, especially people that have dietary restrictions or they have a preference for meat. Pork is traditionally what we use. To be honest, in China, we eat a lot of pork. That's the biggest, most used meat there. But I understand everyone has restrictions, especially like in Xi'an, there's the halal, Muslim quarters. People don't eat pork there, and it's totally fine. Beef is a great alternative. You could even use vegetarian, like mock type of meats. At the end of the day, it's just a little bit different in terms of the initial cook times and of course how the meats will absorb, but beef is very close. It's just not going to be as fatty. So it might be a little, less tender than pork, but it's all the same. For me, when I eat these things, I like it with a little bit of fat. When you chew into it, it's very juicy and like the oil, that's the best. Sometimes the ribs are a little too lean. I don't particularly enjoy that. It feels a little too gritty, a little too dry, but I really like it when there's a lot of fat. And, but anyways, that's totally fine. Beef ribs are going to be bigger though. So just make sure you're browning all sides, and that is, you don't have to cook it all the way through, but definitely the browning, you want to spend maybe a little bit more time on each side because these guys are a little bit smaller. So cool. All right, so let's just go through. I don't know if you have the recipe in front of you, but hopefully you do. I'm just gonna read quickly. So we got our pot over here. You can see on my other camera, you can see the back over here, but it's nothing special. It's just the round pot. Doesn't have to really be that special or mysterious. So we have that ready. All right, and then we're gonna heat up the oil. All right, no problem. My oil is right here. Regular canola vegetable oil. I already measured out to be 3/4 of a cup. So I'm gonna go over here. I'm just gonna add it. 3/4. I'm gonna add pretty much half a cup, like most of it, because what you want to have enough oil to sort of coat the ribs. You don't want the ribs, like the ribs need to be caramelized. So if you put too little, it won't be enough. So definitely put a good generous amount. Like right there is a good amount. If you have a wider dish, you might want to put a little bit more. If you have like a smaller dish with a smaller mouth, it's gonna pull, like it's gonna be deeper. So then maybe you could get away with a little less oil. Doesn't matter. You're not gonna have to drink all this oil later. So don't worry if it's too little, too much. We'll adjust later. All right. So this is gonna get heated up. I'm just gonna use my fancy electric stove right here. And Eric, I see a lot of questions coming in. So please interrupt me at any time. You're not interrupting me at all. I'm just rambling. So
awesome.
Just heating up on high. Yep.
Real quick, we already have a question about, can you repeat how much oil? The email did say 1/4 cup.
Yeah, sorry, I just, again, like as you're making it, you can kind of fudge it a little bit. I'd say 1/4 cup is fine. It really just depends on your pot. For this pot, I put a little bit more because I don't like to like we're gonna put the ribs in later and we're gonna have to like flip it. So if there's not enough oil, I have to like constantly flip it and make sure every sides get brown. So I like to cheat a little bit and have a little more oil. This way I don't flip it that much. The oil does the work, like one side each and it's done, So don't get stressed out about the amounts. Put 1/4 of a cup, depending on how big your pot is. You want to put a little bit more, a little bit less. Good question though. I'm gonna add the sugar in right now. Just put it right into the middle there. And I'm gonna use one of these spatulas. Right, cool. Okay, so I'm just gonna make sure it's in the middle of the oil. It'll slowly turn brown. Just make sure the oil saturates it. So it's nice and even.
Jason, while you're doing that, if we had ribs that were, say, 1 inch wide but 6 inches long, should they cut them in half or leave them as is? I mean, they're bone in.
Well, the problem is you're gonna have a very difficult time cutting that unless you have like a bone saw or really, really heavy cleaver. So I'd say just leave it in. You're gonna need a bigger pot though, because like mine are like 2.5 inch long. If yours is longer, you just have to get a bigger pot. That's all. It's not a big problem. With a bigger pot, maybe a little more oil. So don't worry. Again, we're gonna take the oil out afterwards, and then we're gonna add back the amount that we need to cook the ribs once more before we let it simmer. So don't worry if you put too much too little. It's totally fine.
Sounds good. Jason, what are your feelings about using ground ginger instead of fresh?
Well, I mean, fresh ginger is just, it's so accessible, and there's really no reason to use ground unless there's like a specific need for it in the recipe. For me, I just like to keep a nice big piece of ginger at home in the fridge. Anytime I need it, it doesn't spoil that fast. And anytime I need it, I just have it. I don't think, I haven't cooked this, to be honest, with ground ginger. I always cook with fresh ginger. So but if ground ginger is the only ginger you have, don't worry about it. It'll be okay. Just use that and, use comparable amount of that to the flavor that this will produce. All right. So I'm going to go into that next. I probably should have done this a little bit. So here's lesson 1 in cooking. Turn the heat down if you find yourself struggling to keep up, right? Because I forgot to cut these. So when you get scallions, I'm just gonna jump on. You probably already cut these, per the recipe. You gotta cut them into 1 inch segments. So I'm just gonna do that real quick. Like if you have like kind of withered pieces, you can just throw those out. You don't have to cut them in any fancy, like French. What the heck is the term? Like, oh gosh, what's the term? But basically, like specific cuts. You just cut it rough. As long as it looks okay, this is totally fine. Ginger, again, yeah, like just take the peel off. I just use my knife. I'm a little rough with it, but I'm just gonna take the skin off this way, and I'm just gonna cut it into slices. Doesn't need to be beautiful. It's not gonna matter in the sauce. It's just for the flavor. All right, so it's all done here. That's all the cutting I'm gonna do.
Jason, we have a very
yeah.
We have a very foodie participant who is saying that the term you're looking for is julienne.
No, julienne is one specific cut. Julienne and God, I forgot. I did go to culinary school, guys, but I forgot. It's basically julienne's the skinniest cut. There's like square pieces, like the oh my gosh, it's gonna come back to me. But basically, there's different cuts. Yeah, julienne is an important cut, but it's the finest cut. There's thicker ways, and the French really like their cuts very specific for presentation purposes, as well as for even cooking. So that it's a big deal. We had to cut it very perfectly when we went to school. So
how about either chiffonade or batonette, which, you know, my parents who are on this Zoom will be ashamed of my French that they paid for me to learn in high school.
That sounds familiar. I gotta find. I'm gonna run over there and grab that sheet that I have and find all those cuts. But let me just take a look to see where we're at. So I'm just following along with the recipe, just like you guys, because I want to make sure I'm doing exactly what you're doing. The oil beginning to ripple, add the sugar and stir. All right, so the sugar is in there. As you can see on this camera, it's still not brown yet. My stove is probably a little slower than yours. But if you find your sugar turning like kind of brown already, just maybe take the pot off of the fire just to wait for me to catch up, to be honest. Or you see it's kind of yellowing over here, but it's still not the color we need. We need it to be brown, but not burnt. So once it's getting close to that color, you want to take the pot off without burning. If you're really like can't control it, put the ribs in. Just put it in. You want to start browning that right away. All right. So that's
for people at home. Let's give them a metric for exactly how. I mean, what are we saying? Just straight medium or a little bit above medium?
Sorry, medium.
For
what?
the oil.
Oil.
Just medium
like
or a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, like you. It's not so much about the oil. You're keeping an eye on the sugar. The sugar needs to be caramelized, and then you add in the ribs. So right now, see, I don't know if you can tell from my close-up camera, it's starting to yellow a little bit, but it's still not there yet. The point is you want to cook the sugar first, and then you add the ribs in. That sugar is just going to coat right onto the ribs. And that's what we're going for at this stage. It's just so that the ribs get a little caramelization, some sugar stuck to it, and it's a beautiful thing. So see here, it's starting to turn. And once it gets yellow, it's going to go brown really quick. Like it's like white, yellow, and a brown. So you got to have your ribs ready. Now, be careful. See, it's already turning. I'm going to just let it slow down because I want to control my cooking. I'm going to take it off the pot. Just let it brown. It's fine. I'm going to put in the ribs in shortly. So we're going to cook it until they begin to brown, 1 to 2 minutes on both sides of the ribs. Again, you go by feel. If you have bigger pieces, it's going to take longer. So let's just go by feel over here as well. But as you can see over at my close-up camera, getting there. That is pretty good. That is good. Okay, so it's good on the bottom. It's still a little white on top, but it is okay. Be careful about splatters. You do not want any water on your meat. Just be careful. All right, so we're gonna start adding gently. Don't throw the meat in. Just drop it in slightly. Try to space it out so each of them has some surface with the some contact with the pot directly. Well, those are stuck together, but just be careful. Please don't burn yourself. And we're just putting it in flat. Very simple. Making a little bit of room.
Definitely looks delicious already, Jason. Well, while you're doing that, what can you speak a little bit to what side dishes you'd normally serve with this at home?
Great question. So I like to have, so maybe it's because I'm getting a little bit older. When I was like in my 20s, I didn't care for veggies. But nowadays, it's all about vegetables. Gotta have veggies with protein. It doesn't feel balanced. So of course you have some rice. We usually eat it with rice. We want to do maybe another dish, something simple, because we're busy people. Eggs and tomatoes. You do that in 5 minutes. Very easy. That's a recipe on the book. If you have a little bit more time, you could do another pork dish that I like, the double twice cooked pork. Very simple. Pork belly. It's a little fatty, but very delicious. A little bit spicy. And otherwise, this is a recipe that's not in the book, but just buy some baby spinach, like the ones in a bundle, wash it, and take it out of the water, drain it a few times. Once it's clean, slice like 3 cloves of garlic, Saute the, I would say sweat the garlic. Don't like burn the garlic. And then just in a skillet. And then throw the spinach in, mix it up, throw some salt, boom, you're done. A little oyster sauce on top. That's a nice little side dish. Very similar to like collard greens or, also some sort of steamed vegetables, but a little more flavorful than that. You'll find that type of dish in dim sum. So very common, very easy to make. All right, we're gonna get back to this real quick. As you can see, the sugar is coating the bottom of the ribs. So I'm gonna start flipping them, especially the ones I put in first. When it gets to this level, it's pretty good. You don't want it to be burning too much. Getting that nice caramelization, which is necessary for meat. This one's not ready. I'm gonna keep it down a little bit longer. Yeah, this one's barely ready-ish. Some of them are not as brown. This one's good. So you're really just checking as you go. This one's good. I'll get both sides. This one's not ready. Try to move things around a little bit. Again, be careful. This oil is super hot because the sugar sticks to you if the oil splatters, and it's just not a pleasant experience. Line's a little white, but yeah, it's okay. Some of them are not going to turn that brown because it's skin. Like here especially, it's a very thin piece of skin. It's not going to brown that much, so you don't want it to cook for longer than necessary. All right, so we're flipping these. All right, everything's flipped. I tend to look for the sugar, and I try to like get that sugar coated onto the old sides as much as possible. That's the good stuff. We don't want that to go to waste. All right, so just a minute more on this side. I think we're good. And next step is pretty much we're gonna cook the spices afterwards with the aromatics. Aromatics being the ginger and the scallion. All right, so that's the stuff we're gonna get that flavor out. Then we're gonna put the pork in, and then we're gonna add in some liquid, and then it'll basically simmer after that.
And Jason, while you're doing that, I'm going to note we have somebody mentioned that I think a side that was ignored is rice. That's a straight, easy side, and the juice should soak up really well, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. The juice is, so you know how I said, like, we're gonna put the right amount of oil later in, so don't worry about too much oil. It is pretty important. You don't want to have, so once we're done with this dish, you'll see it's gonna be a nice brown stew served with the ribs, unlike the picture in the book, because when they're doing a book, they're taking picture for aesthetic purposes. So they didn't include any of the sauce because it just looks like a brown mess. Otherwise, it won't show. So when it comes to food photography and actual food, there's a little bit of difference. So when this dish is actually done, it's not going to look like that all dry. It's going to actually have some liquid, and that liquid goes very well with the rice. Just make sure to skim away the oil on top. You don't want to eat oil on your rice. It's like you'll get some, but you want that flavor underneath the oil. So we'll get to that. We'll take a look at that. So right now I'm seeing some good colors over here. Some of these guys are ready to go. So hopefully you guys have some sort of container, metal, hopefully nothing like flammable. I have a little bit of I don't know if you can see, yeah, this thing, it's a little drain with a pot under it. So I'm just gonna start moving the brown ones. Like, see, this one's like very brown, nice and brown on all sides. I'm gonna start moving it. I'm gonna turn the fire down just so that, we don't get too crazy. I'm moving the ribs to drain so that, some of the oil will spill out, even though it doesn't matter. We're gonna probably put some back in anyways, but just so that it doesn't, it looks nice at this point, really. I'm just moving them in. I wish I could brown some of these a little bit longer. This one is good. Look at that. You see this beautiful color we got going on? That is what we want. We don't want it to be super brown yet. It'll come, don't worry.
Definitely should have eaten before this.
You didn't eat? Well, it's okay. Oh, well, Eric, you make a lot of stuff at home with our recipes, so I know that you're used to the good stuff. But when you get a chance, definitely check out some of the other ones as well. So right now, as you can see, I'm moving all these over. I'm satisfied with them. They don't need to be all brown, but I think they got a good amount of caramelization, and it's nice and shiny. So you can see that's because of the sugar sticking onto it. But you can also see that not all the sugar has stuck to the ribs, and that's unfortunate. But here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna get a oh, that's perfect. I'm just gonna use a little metal thing here, and just save this Just be careful with the edges. Sometimes the metals get a little hot. I don't know if you can see, but I'm just gonna pour the excess in here for now. Very hot, be very careful. And by doing that, you're also clearing the pot. So, I'm gonna keep this over here. That oil we're gonna use later. Even though it doesn't call for a recipe, I like to use oil that's already been used with sugar in it. It gives the meat a little extra glaze, because for the sugar that didn't stick to the ribs, this will make sure it sticks later on when we're cooking it, simmering, all right? So I'm gonna take a paper towel real quick. I like to work with clean pots. Very hot, so maybe use a tongs, just wipe it a little bit. I'm actually gonna add, ooh, that's a little bit hot. Excuse me there. Just gonna go off camera for a second and just rinse off the sugar. You don't necessarily have to do this, but it prevents any excess burning of the pot. So you don't want that black stuff around the pots when you're cooking. So I basically just took it and rinsed it with cold water off camera. Yes.
Hey, Jason, should the ribs be a little bit undercooked at this stage?
Yeah, definitely. Don't worry about it being fully cooked. This is only the caramelization. This is what, going back again to Western or French cooking, when you're making soups and stocks, or stocks really, and then you're making sauces from that, you take bones to make that, right? And the bones, you're usually caramelizing that first. You're roasting it with no liquid. You're not fully cooked. You could fully cook it. Doesn't really matter. But then you're simmering it, because that's how you get the flavor out. If you don't have that initial caramelization, meat's not going to taste very tasty. That burnt is actually a blessing. So right now we're going to add in. So let's take a look at our instructions. Make sure. So we cleaned it out. We're on the pretty much the middle of everything. We're gonna add. It says to add the remaining half a cup of vegetables. I'm not gonna use the remain. I'm gonna use it here. I'm gonna use the remaining bit. But you know what? It's more important. I'm gonna do. Let's take a spoon. Careful, it's very hot. I'm gonna try to get that sugar. I don't know if you can see. You see how there's a little bit of brown in my close-up camera? I want to use some of that oil. So you know what? Screw it. I'm just gonna use as much of this as I can. All right, like half of it, right? I didn't use all of it, but I want to use some of that old oil because it has that sugar in it. It's a little tip to make the ribs really shiny at the end. So now we're gonna turn the heat up. It was on medium. I'm gonna turn it up to high, well, medium high, I would say. Let's not, rush ourselves too much with it. It says to add the spices. So remember, we have all these things here already, and I'm gonna add the Szechuan peppercorn in there too, because they're all gonna go on at the same time. And these guys are not gonna stay in. They're gonna go for a swim in the oil. And they're gonna come back out. So I'm gonna break this in half. You might have smaller cinnamon sticks, but mine's like pretty long, so I'm just gonna break it in half. Easier to handle, and we're supposed to get the spices out into the oil. So I'm just gonna add those right in. Be careful, don't splatter. Take a soft spatula so you can scratch your pot if it's a non-stick. And I'm gonna move this so you can see a little bit better. But try not to have too high of heat over here. So you don't want to burn your spices, but you're just getting that flavor out. All spices have some oils in it. This just heats it up and gets it out of the body, and so that it's infused into your oil as you're cooking. And then before the spices burn, you're gonna fish that out. So I have over here one of these guys, little slotted spoon. You can also use one of these guys, little mesh things. I don't like to use these, even though they're great for skimming, because I have to clean them afterwards. I don't like cleaning these guys, but you could definitely have different ways of getting the spices out. But right now, it's still roasting. As you can see, the bay leaves are not really brown yet. I'm gonna give it a little more time. What does it say on our recipe? It says about 1 minute. So we'll give it another minute or so. Again, it just depends on how hot you have everything. Moving some stuff. All right.
So Jason, I wanted to confirm, I think I can see them, but the Sichuan peppercorns are in the oil right now, correct?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Yep,
excellent. Yep. And for anybody who's at home and not cooking along, you are missing out on a fantastic aroma right now.
It is. So right now I'm smelling all the cinnamon. I'm smelling the cloves and the star anise. It's very flavorful. I'm also trying not to burn the sugar too much to basically prevent that from burning, I would actually say maybe, you know, turn the heat down a little bit and also add the sugar stuff towards the end. But it's okay. It's not a big deal if you added it before, because the spices aren't supposed to stay in there that long. I'm going to fish it out now. All right. So I'm going to take this. I'm going to fish out all this gunk. And please don't put it in the water because it'll fizz. So I'm just going to get out some of that gunk. Unfortunately, I lost some of that sugar there. I'm just going to add in some more that I have from over here as a cheat. There you go. So I fish out most of the spices. Some of them are still there. I'm just going to get them out. We don't want them to be burnt. So that's good to go. Now we're going to add in, I believe, the scallions and the ginger. Oh, actually, no. They want me to add in the ribs. I'm going to add in the scallions and ginger first because I like to. It's easier for me. Otherwise, you put the ribs in, it's going to be blocking you, you know, from the aromatic cooking. So I'm adding in these first in lieu of the recipe, or in contrast to the recipe. Missed a few pieces. All right, you just want to get it in a little bit of flavor out of it, and then you can start smelling it now, the scallions and the ginger. Now start putting the ribs back in. Don't just dump them in. Just grab like a couple of them with your tongs. Start putting them in. You're working with medium high fire, not super high fire, because you don't want to, you know, we're all beginners here, so make sure we don't overwhelm ourselves with the speed. All right, now get all that in. So the ribs are sleeping on a bed of aromatics, and it's going to smell very delicious at this point. And I think this is around when the photographer took out the ribs and took that picture for the book. So again, you know, it's not the finished product, but it's very close. And again, it's for aesthetic purposes. But we're going to take it a step further. It's, you know, the taste is also important rather than the looks. So right now we're cooking, we're just stirring it because we don't want things to burn. And a little more caramelization is happening with the ribs.
Jason, while that gets even more delicious, any particular brand of pots and knives that you suggest?
Oh man, I'm very low maintenance. I use the same pot for everything. Today I had a big crab left over, and I wanted to steam it. I just used this with like a bowl and a little thing underneath it to hold up the crab, and just use another pot over here to like cover it as a steamer. So I'm very low maintenance. Maybe it comes from my frugal background, but I think if I were to recommend, if I have to answer that, you don't need to invest in anything super high end. Just go to a restaurant supply store. Restaurant supply stores have, you know, industrial or commercial level of stuff. All right, this is getting good, so I'm taking off the fire as I'm talking because I'm gonna demo later. But again, if you find yourself a little bit, you know, pressed for time or you got to do something else, just take it off the fire. You're cooking the food's not cooking you. So you can definitely control your own pace. Now back to your question, Eric. So restaurant supply stores, good quality stuff, not brand name, very durable, and that's what I use all over. So I definitely recommend that. It's also more durable. This one, like, this is home use. This candle's about to fall off, and I'm gonna like drop on myself with oil one of these days, but you know, knock on wood. But definitely that would be my recommendation. Okay, so at this point, please go grab some water with your measuring cup. We need 2 cups. So that was about 2-3 minutes of cooking. I'm just gonna take it off the fire. I got about 2 cups there over here. I'm just gonna add it in. All right, now you might be like, oh, bummer. It doesn't look as delicious anymore because there's water in it. Don't worry. We still have some other stuff to add in. Now, cooking wine, we did not, I fumbled a little bit, but don't worry. You can just add the cooking wine right now. All the cooking wine does is it takes out the unpleasant gaminess of any meats. And by the time your dish is cooked, it'll be evaporated. So you can use, you know, my dad uses freaking everything like wine, beer, any type of alcoholic thing. It doesn't even have to be this type of cooking wine. The point is really just, and he just takes it and he just dumps it. He's like, I'm like, don't you have to portion that? Does it matter? He says, no, like all it does is just take away the smell. It'll be gone by the time you're finished cooking. So don't sweat that one too much, but it is important. So right now I'm gonna bring it up to high so we could bring it to boil. And let me see if I missed anything else. I think we are good. I'm going to cover the pot as well because that will help bring it up faster. We're not going to count the 30 minutes until this thing starts. Did I add the soy sauce yet? Oh, sorry. That's another thing I added. Excuse me, guys. too happy chatting with you for starting to forget ingredients. I knew it looked a little weird. So just adding the soy sauce in here along with that cooking wine. And I'm just seeing if any other ingredients I forgot. No, I think I'm good. All right, so excuse me on that. But while I got you, while we're talking about ingredients, you guys know what this is? This is pixian douban. So it's pixian bean sauce. It is basically fermented, spicy beans from like a region of Sichuan province, and it's used widely in Sichuan cuisine. I like it. I keep a little jar of it in my fridge. We use this in some of the recipes in the book as well. It's part of the pantry for the book. But the reason I bring this out, it's not here on the for this recipe, but what I do when I'm home, this is like a little insider trick. Instead of where it says 6 tablespoons of soy sauce, I do like 1 tablespoon of this instead of like 1 tablespoon of soy sauce. It gives it a little more spice. It gives it a little bit reddish of a color. And it just, you know, presentability wise and also flavor wise, it adds another dimension. So it's a little mod, you know, just between you and I. It's what I do at home. So again, like when you're going through this cookbook and when you're cooking in general, make it your own. You're cooking at home. It's your dish. Don't be a slave to the book. You know, like you can make it any way you want. If you like a little more salty, a little less salty, or a little more spicy, you could throw a dried red chili pepper in there. I do that sometimes as well. I have a cabinet full of them. So like you could do whatever you like as long as, you know, you like it. So that's the beauty of home cooking.
What about going the
yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you go. So it's starting to boil. I'm going to set an alarm. Okay, Google, set an alarm for 30 minutes, please. Okay, there you go. So 30 minutes is good. So sorry, go ahead, Eric.
No, that's fine. I hear you talking about customization. Everybody on this thing is getting the real secrets beyond the book. What about going the other way? If let's say that you don't have a good spice tolerance, can you take out the Szechuan peppercorns?
You could. The Szechuan peppercorn is not, when you have this dish, it's not going to make that big of a difference. I would say for this dish, you can't do without soy sauce. You can't do without star anise. Maybe cloves. The Szechuan peppercorn is really just to add a little bit of like subtle spiciness to it. It's not going to burn you, but it'll be there. If it's not there, you'll miss it. If it is there, you won't notice it. You know, if that makes any sense. So yeah, I mean, look, like there's a whole chapter in the book about missing ingredients. When I grew up in, you know, small town Michigan back in like 97, we didn't have Amazon. So we always had to make do. So be creative. We made our own vinegar. We made our own, you know, like for instead of bok choy, we use Brussels sprouts, and that turned out to be a whole new recipe in here. You know, so be inventive, be creative. That's what food is all about.
Thank you.
Cool. All right, so we're boiling here. Sorry, so we're boiling. This is getting pretty hot. I'm gonna turn it down, right? So we're gonna simmer it for 30 minutes. The reason I cover it is because I wanted to get a nice simmer so the meat becomes more tender. If I open it, I feel like it's gonna you know, cause the water to evaporate too quickly, and we're not gonna get that tenderness. So I'm just gonna lower the heat to low, like it says, and then for 30 minutes we're gonna just let it cook and keep an eye on it, because sometimes with these electric stoves, especially, it looks like it's boiling, right? But then after a few minutes, you're like, oh crap, it's not boiling at all anymore. So you got to turn it up a little bit. It's a little finicky. So just keep an eye on it every few minutes. Right now I turn mine to low, but maybe I'm gonna have to put up to like low medium in a bit. So depending on how it goes. But yeah, Eric, I'm all yours.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jason.
You're welcome.
So, Jason, we have some serious questions and big discussions but I want to start with a really softball question that's close to my heart. Sure. Tell me about the Xi'an Famous Foods chili oil. Are you going to keep selling it? I need some more, so that's why I'm asking.
Eric, I swear, I see your name on the order list like all the time. St. Louis, Eric, I'm like, all right, this guy's legit. He knows what he's getting. So no, I appreciate that. And also, the chili oil is actually the heart of our dish. We have a recipe for it in our book. Of course, it's a home version. You'll get about 90% of the taste versus what my father personally still makes in small batches. So we'll continue to sell it. I'm gonna just take this. I'm gonna switch it to 1 ring of fire instead of 2 because it's a little bit too exciting for me. All right, so we are gonna continue to sell it. We initially started selling chili oil as a reaction to or a move against the COVID pandemic, which shut a lot of our restaurants. A lot of people were missing our flavors, and we weren't really open at that point. So we're like, all right, we have to give flavors to people somehow. And the fastest way is, we already have the packets that we use for some of our dishes when they're taken to go in our restaurants. So we started selling those, and it became a big hit. New York Times did a little shout out on the morning briefs, and it took off. So we're going to continue to do that because I think that it's just, our mission statement is to spread the taste to satiate cravings that people have for our food. And that's no matter if it's from a restaurant, we're selling food that way, or through online with chili oil or meal kits. It's all within the scope of our goal. And yeah, definitely we're going to keep doing it. And we're going to hopefully bottle it better for better presentation. But, something that we got to kind of figure out soon too. So.
Excellent. Well, hopefully you'll put it in gallon jugs pretty soon. That would be ideal.
Industrial size for the big family.
Yeah.
Costco.
And
yeah.
Those of us that saw your social media feeds, I saw when your chili oil started selling out, you were confused. Actually, the guy that answered that question for you is watching right now. His name's Kevin, and he's a huge fan too.
Thanks a lot. Thank you so much. Yeah, I had to crowdsource the answer for that because one day I would just saw our orders like shot up through the roof. I was like, what is going on? Like, this is great, but what is leading to this? I want to understand. And it was because of the morning briefs and someone helped me, answer the question. I do appreciate that. I rely on my fan base a lot for answers at times, whether it's like where we should open or, what do you think about this dish, etc. So it was pretty cool. Yeah, it's nice to be appreciated in terms of, the chili oil. And by the way, guys, you see I'm like going back and forth checking this. My fire is pretty high. My stove is working really well today. So I'm just going to move it a little off center so it doesn't go too crazy because it's getting a little more boiled than I would like. All right. So same thing with your stove. That's the biggest variability when you're cooking from like recipes. Everyone has different stoves. Everyone has different pots. So you just got to keep an eye on the general guidelines. So sorry, go ahead, Eric.
Awesome. No, thank you. And, to answer the question you asked there, Kevin Chin, the guy that answered your question, says the Bronx. That's where you need to open the next one.
No, we got to hit up all the boroughs. Yeah.
Jason, let's talk a little bit about the cookbook. Why did you do the cookbook? I know you were planning it before the pandemic, so it wasn't a reaction to that. Tell me about what motivated you there.
Yeah, I mean, the cookbook, we actually started working on it a couple years back. We were approached about getting a cookbook done maybe 5-6 years ago, but I was kind of hesitant because, to be honest, I wasn't. We, as in my father and I, we weren't really ready to share, to reveal all to everyone yet, because we were wondering, like, is it going to expose our recipes to the point where people are just going to take our food and start making their own Xi'an famous foods? Like, I'm not saying at home, but like restaurants, copycats, right? But more and more as we matured as a brand, the brand equity has gotten stronger and stronger to the point where we're not really worried about anyone. They're already, opening restaurants that are like ours that would, some of them, actually infringing our names, some of them subtly copying things. But, at the end of the day, everyone's free to do whatever they want. And for us, we feel like we're mature enough as a brand. And the focus is really just satisfying our mission statement, which is to make sure people have access to these foods. We're obviously not expanding at the rate that, it's going to be like McDonald's or Starbucks around everyone's corner. So I think this is another avenue where we're able to kind of preach our food, so to speak. That's the, ultimate goal. I think when my father started a business, it wasn't a business. It was obviously a livelihood, but it was more so about satisfying people's cravings. Back then, it was just Chinatown, but now it's all over the U.S. So it's just along those lines. But anyways, when we're shopping around for people who want to publish our books, I really wanted to make sure we told the stories of the book, of our restaurant and our background as immigrants, along with the recipes. It's not just going to be like, Auntie Lee's like 100 recipes. It's going to be Uncle Jason and all of his stories along with the recipes, which enhances the whole reading experience. So we're finally able to, start on this project 2 years ago. I work with a great writer, Jessica, who's a good friend of mine. And she's a great writer as well, a good food journalist. She did an incredible job. She did all the writing. I basically just worked with her. She actually did all the my ecomp 100 level is not good enough to write a book with. Washu has great education, but I just took the basics and I just got out and went to B school. But like I relied on a great team. We had a great photographer, Jenny. She's shooting all over the place for really good publications, and a great publisher with Abraham. So we had a great team. We're finally able to get it out, but then the pandemic hit. So then, it's a blessing in disguise. I wish we could have had a launch party and have a little more like traveling with book signings, go to St. Louis. I wanted to do a book signing at the Washu bookstore just for old time's sakes, or maybe some event on the loop. But, that's not really possible at this time for safety purposes, for safety reasons. So we started doing more virtual things. And, right now, the silver lining I was talking about is that people are cooking more at home. So there's a lot more interest in that sense. So it's been good.
Good. Thank you, Jason. Thank you so much. And I think those of us that have read the cookbook can attest. It's more of a memoir and a love letter to flavors and to China and to America than it is a straight up cookbook. It is a great book. And it is for sale in the Washu bookstore for those of you in St. Louis, by the way.
Gotta go get it.
Let's let me shift the focus a little bit. Jason, you go to your restaurants, you see pictures of famous people all over the walls. A lot of really big names in food have visited you. Tell me about your favorite celebrity who's visited Xi'an Famous Foods.
I think the answer is very obvious for those that know about our brand. We give a lot of credit to Anthony Bourdain for making our food well known throughout the world, really. Anthony, he, unfortunately, he passed a couple of years ago, and it was just very shocking and very sad for all of us. But he's one of the first people that brought our brand to the next level, meaning brought it out from literally the basement of a dingy food court in Flushing, Queens, the Chinatown, New York, into more of a world-class brand. So we give him a lot of credit. And he was a very genuine guy, and just very much a straight shooter, in terms of dealing. He's not someone who's I've worked with a lot of people, and without naming names, a lot of folks they're TV personalities. At the end of the day, they're a personality. That's the main attraction about them. But there are people who are more genuine. And Anthony's not the only one, but there are people who are genuine, like Tony, who just says it like it is. He doesn't really give a crap about what people think. It's more of like what he actually believes in. That's something I really respect about him. And I think that's why people actually care about what he said about in the food world. And also, he was not just like a total jackass or something where he just says whatever without regard for anyone. He respects food. When he's traveling through the world, he's not going in there being like, oh man, you guys make this food, it's so weird. Let me figure out stuff about it just because it's so novel to me. No, it's more like he's going into someone's house. He's maybe joining a family or a family business. He's trying out the food. He likened it. I remember he had a talk. He had like a stand-up type of show in Brooklyn Academy of Music a few years back. And he says, every time I go into a different country, a different culture, eating food, I'm going there because I'm a guest. I feel honored for them opening the doors to me, allowing me to try the food, even if I don't like it. It's about respect. You're going to someone's house. It's like you're going to your grandma's house. If you didn't like the food, are you really going to go like say, hey, grandma, your food sucks, right? That's not how, we should behave. And I think, Tony was just a big proponent of respect for other cultures without, kind of appropriating other cultures for his own gain. He's really just like, kind of telling their stories with respect. And that's something I really respect about him.
Jason, we know Anthony Bourdain was a huge influence, not only to you, but to so many restaurateurs and aspiring, even home cooks. Interesting question coming up in the chat. The history of Xi'an goes back even a little farther than Washu. Washu 1853. I think Xi'an was around back then. Maybe I'm not sure. But what's the oldest dish that
Asian studies? I'm sorry.
Yeah, we'll go. What's the oldest dish on the Xi'an Famous Foods menu?
The oldest dish on the Xi'an Famous Foods menu. When it comes to food, it's hard to pinpoint an exact origin date of them because they usually morph throughout the times, right? So there's no like the inventor of biang biang style noodles, right? But I would say, the dishes that are going to be older are going to be probably like the noodle dishes, because back then, when you think about China geographically, there's north and south. South tends to be more rice, focused back in like ancient time. Now it's like everywhere. There's noodles, rice. You could get it anywhere. You could get those all over the world, right? But back then, geographically, southern provinces or back then there were countries, because China wasn't one country back then. It was many small, just like Italy back in the day. So, it's basically the geographical differences made the food. So southern states had southern rice paddies, and northern places, they don't have that because that's not the climate that rice grows in successfully. So there's more wheat, there's more grains. So that's why I would say noodles is historically more of a Xi'an thing. And especially because there's so much tradition with biang biang noodles, right? Biang, the word, if it's not a real word. It's 58 strokes of this character. Oh man, do I have the original? I think I have the original somewhere of the actual character that someone painted for, like calligraphy for us, that became our Biang logo, our formerly sister restaurant that we opened, but we had closed because we wanted to focus on fast casual. That character is basically a poem, but all that character means is the noodle. So that it's referring to that wide handful noodle. So I'd say because there's so much tradition, I'm pretty sure that's going to be the oldest dish.
Thank you, Jason. Jason, I'm going to amalgamate a bunch of questions that are coming up in the chat. Pre-pandemic,
Okay.
or when you're not cooking in your own kitchen, what are you craving and what do you love in New York City?
Oh man. So New York City is great. You get to have all sorts of food here. Even now with the pandemic, I actually just moved to Manhattan, and you have a lot more access to every food there is. And especially right now, restaurants really need our support. So even though eating out is pretty expensive in New York City, I definitely, selfishly, for my own purposes, I want to eat out, but also I feel good about supporting businesses right now. So pre-pandemic, I was pretty busy. I did not have time to cook. When the pandemic hit, I pretty much stayed home for a few months. Our restaurants were closed. I was just figuring out all the PPP loans and all the aid and what to do with our employees, and how do we get back and running again, right? So I had a lot of time to cook. But before that, I was pretty strapped for time. And what I would usually do is I go for, I like Italian food. I like Japanese, namely sushi. I really like well done sushi. I'm not talking about California rolls. I'm talking about omakase, and a little pricey, but I wish we were in Japan because you could get that for much, much cheaper, but got to deal with it being in New York. You have access to it. It's just very expensive. But those are probably my go-to. And usually when I'm home, I like to eat Chinese food, of course, but I don't have time to cook. So a lot of times I get like Szechuan food. I get, I like to eat frogs. So that's actually, there's a Hunan dish that I eat a lot in Flushing. That's a frog and hot pot, and also duck, roast duck. Very easy. Those ones hang in the windows and they chop up and they serve with some rice and some veggies. It's like a box lunch. And I usually get that, take it home, eat it. Those are some of my go-to dishes. I'm not picky at all, but I do enjoy, fine dining every now and then for special occasions. But I'm not a picky eater. I'm a cheap date.
Thank you, Jason. I'm trying to put up the Biang Biang character, but it's backwards. But
man, I gotta find it for you. Where did I put it? Oh, you know what? Give me 1 second. You could probably, I could still hear you, but I know. Yeah, I think I know where it is.
Well, I can't figure out how to reverse this. I know you've got a better version. Jason, while you're looking for that, let me ask you a question about do you feel a tension between creating authenticity and appealing to a mass audience? I mean, your restaurants are so successful. Is there a tension there, or do you feel like you can easily reconcile those?
Yeah, I mean, I think the way that we built it up, since the very beginning, is that we're all about authenticity, and that's really what people bought into. So it's not like we were something else and then we pivoted in order to appeal to the mass market. I think the mass market, so to speak, that's what they wanted. So that's exactly why we were successful. So basically what I'm trying to say is, like, I'm back, by the way. Basically, I found it. Basically, it's what we're known for. It's not like we pivot ourselves to become more popular. our popularity is rooted on authenticity. Now, what do we do differently? Why are we, doing, like, how are we able to make authenticity work, for everyone? I think it's about accessibility. So I think there's great food everywhere. I think people just, sometimes people don't have the luck as we did in terms of, like, for example, Tony come to our store, and for me having a Washu education to be able to help grow the business. Not everyone's as fortunate as that to have those opportunities and that luck. But I think at the end of the day, we kept true to what we want to do. We're very on top of, how we make the food, like consistency across the board, even though there's always going to be mess ups because, people make mistakes. But I think we stay true to the authenticity, and authentic is a special word as well, because a lot of people ask me, what is your food authentic? I would say it's authentic to my family's recipes. My family is at least 4 generations in Xi'an, right? So is that authentic? It's not like exactly like what you'll find on the streets of Xi'an, but some of our recipes are not found on the street specifically because they're so authentic that they're not commercialized and common on the streets. So that's what I have to say about authenticity. But while I got you, so here's the original. I have this ink painting of Biang. So that's the traditional version of that character that I was talking about. There's also simplified version. So for example, like this middle character here, instead of like so many strokes, it's just a few strokes. And but yeah, it's very ornate. You find this hanging in some restaurants. That's what it means. There's a character that looks like this, but it's not this. So just be careful. But anyways, take a screenshot, check it out. That's the original. This is the original thing that our trademark is based on for our Biang restaurant. So I'm gonna probably frame that and keep it close to heart.
Excellent. Thank you, Jason.
Yeah.
Jason, I want to take a moment to get some shout outs locally here.
All right.
What tell me about your favorite spots around St. Louis? And then a side question, which Bear's Den Chinese dish do you think is the most authentic, if any?
Oh God. Wait, is Bear's Den still around, first of all? Like, because it changed so much since I last was there. Is it still the same building, or did you guys tear down, make a new one that's still called Bear's Den? I don't even know.
I'm trying to think of where. Anyway, yeah, it's still around.
Northwest Wool, and yeah, it's.
Oh yeah, Wool's gone.
So
Wool, yeah.
It's great.
Anyway.
It's great. I love the place. So the so first question, local favorites. I have to give a shout out to my most favorite, U City Grill. Shout out to my man Hyo. The father who is working to support his son, who's a very talented young man. And his family, of course. I gotta give a shout out to U City Grill's Hyo. He actually made it to our store in 54th Street with his son when he was in a fencing tournament. And he sent me a text, like a selfie of them being there. It was really cool. Worlds colliding, right? So U City Grill, that's actually when I was funny story. As I was coming back from my first corporate job where I was fired. Basically, I was in Minneapolis. I saw someone from Minneapolis earlier, by the way. How's the weather there? Pretty cold, right? So I'm pretty glad I got away from before the winter hit, right? So I never had the fortune to enjoy that weather, but I enjoyed the summer. So I was there, drove down from Minneapolis after my failure, and basically stopped by St. Louis to meet up with my friend Jimmy, who's a master's student there. And we went to some parties back then. And then I stopped by U City Grill, and I was talking to Hill back then. And he's like, "Oh, what happened, man? I thought you were like, you just moved to Minneapolis, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I just moved back. That didn't really work out." And he's like, "What are you gonna do now?" And I said, "I'm actually on my way back to New York to join, my father in growing this business." And he's like, "Oh, okay." So that was like my last interaction as I was leaving St. Louis. And then years later, I came back to St. Louis many times, and every time I go to U City Grill right after I get out of Lambert, and basically. I always like to see him there, and I think more and more he's actually starting to remember. It's like, "Oh yeah, you're that guy that went back to Washu, or you went back to New York, right? Oh yeah, okay." You know how he talks. You guys know who I'm talking about. So you see, girl, I gave him a lot of shout outs, but I think I gotta give a shout out to the restaurants on on Olive. We went to Wei Hong a lot for dim sum. Back then it was called Asiana, that restaurant. Now it's called something Kitchen, Sichuan Kitchen or something, but it's like a Sichuan place. I used to go there like every other night with my friends, my suite mates, to get decent Sichuan food. Now I think you guys have it better now. I think the scene has changed. to be even more authentic. I gotta give a shout out to, you know, all the restaurants on Washington Ave, Washington Street, like Midtown is one of them. A lot of restaurants that I was that were open back then aren't there anymore, unfortunately. But you know, I still like, is Blues Cafe where the sandwiches are? Is that still open? I thought it was like closed, but you know, I also like was it Pappy's, you know, the barbecue spot. So all these different places, I think they, you know, St. Louis actually has a pretty vibrant food culture. I went to that one restaurant that Casey recommended. It was like a Ozark style restaurant in St. Louis, right? And it was kind of like a, what was it?
The Salt and Smoke?
Yes, Salt and Smoke. That's correct. So that was a very interesting experience as well. So I think, you know, people are pretty innovative over in Midwest and in St. Louis, and I gotta give them a lot of credit. But there's a lot of good stuff there, and I do miss that culture. You know, every time I see St. Louis, you know, ribs on like some sort of packaging or advertised in a restaurant, I'm like, really? Is it really? You know, so it's kind of fun.
That's awesome. Hey, Jason, listen,
Yeah.
we're going a little long. I'm totally okay with it.
Okay.
I think most people are. I just want to ask you, for anybody that has to leave at sort of the scheduled time, can you give a quick synopsis of what people should do to finish this dish? But we'll keep watching you. It's just some people might have to leave.
Okay. Okay, Google, how much time left? 5 minutes. Okay, cool. I'm just gonna do this. All right, guys. So all you gotta do is dinner time. I understand. Take the lid off. It's about 30 minutes. So just turn it up high. You want to reduce. Let it evaporate. So if you find that, you know, there's a little more liquid that you wanted, you could just go a little longer. Unfortunately, it's a little inconvenient for some folks, but basically reduce it down till there's a little bit of sauce, and it's gonna be coating, like it's gonna be, what's the term, napant, on the you know, very sticky onto the ribs, or sort of sticky onto the ribs. That's when you know that's good. But it's really up to you what level you want the reduction. And once it's done, you're ready to serve. So very simple dish. You know, so good luck. Enjoy your dinner. If you have to go, totally understand. Definitely check out our meal kits on xianfoods.com. And that's my shout out.
Awesome. Thank you. And Jason, like I said, I think I and probably the majority of people here will you know, can't wait to see you finish this, but I just wanted to give people that were leaving that opportunity.
No, absolutely. No worries. So yeah. Do your thing, guys.
Jason, I've gotten a lot of questions here on the chat about your plans to expand to other cities. Can you collectively answer those, or do you have plans to expand to any other cities?
I think I can collectively answer that now, just because it's pretty obvious what's going on right now. COVID is hitting us pretty hard. So, you know, expansion is probably not in the works this year, or maybe most of next year. But for us, you know, we're lucky to have such a strong brand. Whereas, you know, when there are unfortunately a lot of closings, you know, people are reaching out to us to say, you know, do you want to come in? I know you're a good brand. Do you want to come to LA? Do you want to come to Chicago? Do you want to come to Florida, Atlanta? You know, like DC. I think I got someone from DC today. So, and we were talking about licensing in Tokyo, and, you know, licensing in the Middle East and stuff. So there's a lot of stuff, but we've always been a conservative company. We had 14 locations, just a little brief, before the pandemic. Now we have 10, and we're about to, you know, try to open up more whenever we can. Some new deals on the way as well. But I think once we get past this hurdle, we'll be able to expand quicker. We're well poised for that with our central kitchen and our operations. So, you know, it's just a matter of time. But unfortunately, it's a difficult time for the industry, and you know, we're not immune to that either.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, certainly understand it's a really tough time for restaurants, and we'll hope that expansion can happen soon and safely.
Absolutely.
So
for sure.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask a question that came up a while ago. What did you learn at Washu that has helped you most in your Xi'an famous foods journey?
Oh, by the way, I'm just doing this to people that are shouting out. I'm reading your comments, so thanks for the shout outs. But yeah, so sorry, Eric, you're talking about how Washu has affected like how Washu has helped my journey, basically, right? Sorry, I kind of zoned out for a sec. Okay. Yeah, I mean, look, Washu, the reason I'm wearing this shirt is not just because of this event. Of course, it was the only clean shirt I have left for this week. But, you know, I like this shirt because Washu is something that's part of me. You know, for me, growing up, a little bit personally, I kind of moved around a lot. So I never really stuck in one place. Washu is like the only place I actually stayed for like the longest time until now. I'm in New York for a while, but so it's really like my second home, you know, and my home back in the days. So basically, I have very close personal attachment to the school. My time over there is, you know, I think Washu really helped me to think critically about things. You know, I wouldn't say, if people ask me like, what exactly did Washu's education do for you in terms of your work? For me, it might be different from like if you're an engineer or something more like precise and scientific. For me, when I went to business school, I don't believe that business school is all about like giving you the formula for success, like just do 1, 2, 3, and you'll be making this much, right? I don't think that's the purpose. More and more, I believe that it was about the framework, about critical thinking. So, you know, for me, I often refer back to my education at the business school. As much as other school folks might want to make fun of B school, preschool, I think that we do a lot of serious work there, and you know, a lot of intellectual folks there. And I think, for example, I'm going through, you know, marketing classes, finance classes, accounting classes, HR classes, or organizational behavior stuff. That when I'm going through school, I'm like, when am I ever going to use this information? But more and more as I'm going through my business, especially in the beginning, setting up stuff like being able to talk to the CPAs, being able to think about serving and, you know, analysis of segmentation for, you know, marketing purposes, being able to think about hiring and incentives and just management of human resources. All these things are just, you know, I had the framework to tap into, like to know where to look, what questions to ask to further my own knowledge to do what I need to do. So I think Washu really gave me that tool, like kind of like a Swiss Army knife. It's not the knife that's gonna, okay, Google, stop. So it's not gonna be the thing that's gonna solve all problems, but it's gonna get me on the right track instead of being lost of being where I am. So I give a lot of credit to Washu for that. That's why you always see me in Washu gear. A lot of my photos and magazines, actually, I'm wearing like a Washu shirt or something. It's not no accident. It's because I really truly believe that, you know, Washu has helped me become, you know, get to where I am. By the way, the alarm went off, so we're supposed to reduce it out. But look, like, sorry, just taking a real quick break. Stuff is falling off the bone a little bit, but it's still not, you know, to the right thickness that I want. So I'm just gonna reduce. You know, it's just a matter of time. I think you can put a little less water in there if you're cooking in the future to save you some time. But you know, it's the same effect at the end of the day. You know, depending on how much sauce you want. Sorry, go ahead, Eric.
Are you worried at all about overcooking at this point? I mean, if other people have too much liquid, quote unquote, too much?
No, it's okay. It's I'm not worried about it. Won't make a huge difference at this point. As long as you're not running dry, it should be okay. You know, it won't be burnt or anything. So no worries.
Okay, great. Thank you.
But you know, just for simplicity's sake, I would say, you know, do a little bit less water to start with. I think I put a little extra, more than 2. Do a cup and a half just to save some time. Just an insider tip. Because everyone's pot's a little different. I'm using electric versus like when this recipe is made, my father's using gas. So he's like testing some stuff, and I kind of go with his last word. Otherwise, he'll yell at me for you know, making recipes without his consent. So I go with his recipes, and sometimes these things get a little messy. So.
Does your dad know you're cooking here today? Should we tell him?
He does, but I didn't. No,
okay,
I'm gonna send him the recording. But you know, he was like, "How can we watch this?" I was like, "You can watch the recording," but I'm not gonna have him, you know, start calling me right now and be like, "Hey, you got to do this. Got to do this differently." So yeah.
All right, Jason. So for those of us with extraordinarily busy schedules, maybe not quite as bad as you, but what's your favorite weeknight 30-minute meal?
Oh, 30-minute meals. I mean, I think I alluded. I touch on this one too often, but you know, eggs and tomatoes, man. Eggs and tomatoes is so versatile. It's so easy to make. You could eat it for breakfast, you eat it for dinner, and you can make it with noodles. You know, like you could have with the rice. You could, you know, what my dad always does whenever he's, you know, in a crunch, he's a little busy. He just actually, you know, we were just somewhere else this weekend as well where there's not a lot of food, but he just needed to make something simple, whip up something hot and soupy. Just throw some noodles, like pasta type of dry noodles, like Chinese noodles though. Just throw it in a pot, boil some water, put a little salt, a little soy sauce. We like a little black vinegar in there. You can put some of our chili oil, eggs and tomatoes with some of the noodle soup, the water the noodles cooked in. And that's egg tomato soup noodles right there. So very easy dishes. That's usually what he makes. If you're too lazy to get noodles, take a piece of dough and just rip pieces off of like a piece of dough that usually would make noodles out of, and that's good on me, you know, like, so that's like lump noodles that you could eat as a soup. That he that's what he eats all the time. We're not, you know, when you're talking to restaurant people, typically we just make with whatever we have. There's, you know, even like Michelin chefs, when what they actually enjoy, that's actually a big part of our clientele in New York. A lot of kitchen folks from like Michelin 1, 2, 3 stars in the kitchen, they would order a family meal from us because they're not eating fancy stuff in their off times. They actually enjoy something more casual, something more hearty, soul food, you know, comfort food. So that's what I would say. Definitely look to that recipe. There's other stuff in there as well. I mean, there's the ramen recipe we have, which is literally instant ramen with a little tweak, some eggs, some veggies, very, very simple stuff. But I would say most of the stuff is not hard. It's just some things need a little preparation. Like you're gonna have to make the noodle dough ahead. But if you make, like, if you have lamb, even the spicy cumin lamb recipe, which is one of the most popular things in here, it takes about 5-10 minutes to make. It's not hard. It's just the preparation that's hard. So just as long as you plan ahead, or if you want to have some rice instead of noodles, you can save yourself a lot of time.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jason.
You're welcome.
Let's see, do we have a time for, yeah, okay. So tell us about how you keep the consistency across Xi'an Famous Foods restaurants without sacrificing authenticity. I mean, it's extraordinarily consistent, but delicious and authentic. So tell us about your process.
Yeah, absolutely. I love talking about this question just because a lot of people have that stereotype of like, oh man, XFF is expanding. They don't care about the quality. The quality is like no good, right? But that's actually really far from the truth because our expansion is fueled by demand only, not by capital, because we take zero investors. So we don't franchise. We don't take on any money from investors who will tell us like, hey, Jason, you got to expand 5 locations this year for this amount of money. Otherwise, I won't give you this money, right? So that's why that stereotype came about, is because of these pressures from investors saying like, I need you to hit these numbers. Otherwise, we're not going to help you out with money, right? So we never had that pressure. We expand when we're ready to, when we feel like there is enough of demand, when we are capable. And so that's one thing. Second thing is, as we expand, our menu is pretty simplified because we want to focus on the top selling items. My goal is to make sure you come into my restaurant to have a spicy cumin lamb noodle. You're going to get exactly what you're thinking about, what you've heard about, what you remember. And, I'm going to do it really well. And I'm going to be known as the place that serves the best spicy cumin lamb noodles. That's my goal, not to serve like 50 different dishes, right? So, so with that helps with the quality control because I have a limited menu. And also we have a central kitchen. We purchased central kitchen for $8 million of our own money with the help of a bank, of course. But who's not in the say of our daily day-to-day operations, but just for the real estate. And we basically built that out. That central kitchen makes all of our sauces and all of our critical spices and various ingredients for the New York restaurants. So much like the meal kits that you guys get if you were to order online, you're gonna get the sauces and everything ready to go, frozen, freshly made, but frozen for shipment. And then just like our restaurants, you get the same ingredients and then you make it. The noodles obviously have to be pulled fresh. That's a deal breaker. You can't pre-make that. And that's how we do it. We make stuff consistently in our centralized hub. And then for the stuff that we can't make ahead of time, we make in the restaurants. We serve it fresh to order to people. And that's how we're able to do it.
Thank you, Jason. I mean, the inner workings of the business are fascinating, and we appreciate that insight.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. And by the way, guys, just real quick, you're starting to see on this close-up camera, the ribs are like, the sauce is getting really foamy, and that's a sign that it's getting really thick. So right now it's at I would say I'll give it 5 to 10 more minutes, because when it gets to this point, it actually reduces faster than before, because you're actually only dealing with a little bit of liquid at the bottom of the pot now. But as you can see, I'll tilt it a little bit. It's kind of bubbly, and that's how you know it's almost ready. And the color is also very different. I'm just gonna pick one out. Yeah, see, it's not nice and brown now, and it's pretty much there. All right, so you're getting very close to dinner time. Oh, sorry, Eric.
No, that's good. Thank you.
And I turned down the heat a little bit just so it doesn't go too fast. So
we're okay. So we're trying to switch our cameras around.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm here too.
Jason, for those people who perhaps don't eat it as fast as I do, if they have a lot of the Sichuan chili oil,
Yeah.
is it used in cooking? Do you put it on any dish after the dish is cooked? Do you, I mean, what, can you drink it?
You can use it. So if you ask that question to my father, he'd be like, you use it on anything you want. You use it, it doesn't matter. For me, I would say, look, personally, I like to, I've seen people marinate things with it. I've seen people finish stuff with it, meaning like it's already cooked, you're just drizzling on top. I see it more as finishing and as a condiment. So hot pot, dumplings, dipping sauces. You want to add a little chili oil in there. Dumplings, it's always, for me, it's always soy sauce, vinegar, a little garlic. My dad likes to put a little sesame oil and then chili oil, right? I have a jar right here. So I keep this guy around. This is the only condiment I keep on the kitchen counter. Everything else is in the cabinet because I use this thing a lot more. So you can use it as a finishing, meaning like you're eating noodles, you just want to drizzle it. You're eating pizza, you just want to drizzle it. Eating these ribs, you want to drizzle it. That's good too. The eggs and tomatoes I was talking about, you want to drizzle it. That's good too. I've seen people marinate. So you can do that for maybe barbecuing. You could do that for any other dishes too. Because the spice is not just oil. The chili oil has these seedy parts that actually has a lot of spices. So that will help with the marinade as well. So it's really, be creative. I've seen people put on avocado and toast. I've seen people put on eggs of all sorts and, barbecue. It's very versatile. Think about like sriracha. The only difference is it's an oil. There's no preservatives, but it is shelf stable because it's an oil and it has no seasoning. So you gotta have something that's savory to add with it. It's not gonna have saltiness to itself.
Thank you. Hey, Jason, technical note, we lost your overhead camera. So when it's time, can you show us the dish on the other camera?
Absolutely. I think it's pretty close to time. I'm gonna bring it over and just show you. Actually, I think I'm good. I'm good with this. So let me get my mitt so I don't burn myself on camera. Okay, I'm gonna show you. You guys see that?
Perfect. Delicious, Jason.
That's what it is. That's where it is. So the sauce, as you can see, is pretty much all reduced. Yeah, and the sauce is kind of thick. This sauce is gold. So what you could do is, you can't finish all of this, even if you finish the ribs and you still have the sauce left, just let it cool down in the refrigerator. And then next day, all the oil is going to flow on top. Just scrape it off. And then you got your delicious sauce. You can put on your rice. You can put in your noodles. You can put on anything. It's just delicious. So there you go. I'm going to put it back so I could check. Well, I'll leave it here, actually. I'll put
Thank you, Jason. Quick note, we're gonna send you a shirt. What's your size?
My shirt size, so I was like a small, but after COVID, I'm like a medium. So I'll take a medium, please.
Okay.
And everything's getting a little bigger due to COVID, staying at home, not being as active, but just started going to the gym like a month ago. So wish me luck, guys.
All right. Good luck.
Thank you.
Jason, there's a question in the chat. I don't understand it because the question is, if you have opened a chili packet, how long does an open packet last? I don't know what I get it at once. That's what I do, but
you Eric knows what's up. No, but this is open. It's shelf stable. It's not gonna go bad. So this is technically what I do is, I'll show you. I have packets in my fridge right here. Sorry, just one sec. I got a whole packet here. I gotta have this stuff around. This is our chili oil. So the thing is, unlike Eric, I probably can't finish all of it in one sitting unless I'm eating a lot. I usually drizzle a little bit here and there, but it's really inconvenient, unfortunately, because our packaging right now is limited to this. So we haven't figured out bottling yet, like automation. So just cut this and just put it in a jar and just have it on your counter. It's shelf stable, but you just don't want it to be sitting too long. The color gets not so bright anymore, and the taste starts to dissipate a little bit, but it doesn't go bad. So you don't have to put it in the fridge. We do just, it's just so for precautionary measures, but it's shelf stable. It's tested by lab, so it's not going to go bad. It's probably like antibiotic by itself. So, don't take my word for it, but some food scientists could probably speak to that better than I can. But I'm pretty sure chili oil was theoretically antibiotic. So.
Great. Jason, any drinks that you'd recommend pairing with this meal? And by the way, don't drink the Shaoxing cooking wine. Don't be tempted.
Don't drink it. No good. I think any of our dishes will pair really well with beers. Just in terms of what we serve in our stores, I would say, spicy foods and food with strong flavors. We like Hitachino, Nest Ale, White Ale is pretty good. Lagunitas IPA we serve. Qingdao is a no-brainer. If you want some Qingdao beer, that's good. In terms of wines, I never really pair with wines, to be honest. But I like a nice, easy to drink like white wine. So whatever strikes the mood, you could definitely have some of that. But typically, it's not paired with this stuff. And Coke. I know it's bad for you, but Coke is it mixes really well with this type of cuisine. But other than that, I mean, I think those are my go-tos. I'm happy to hear about what you guys pair with. I'll give it a try myself.
Okay,
Whatever.
thank you.
I saw an interesting question there.
Yeah, I think, and unfortunately, I think this is going to have to be the last question. But
Okay.
would you ever consider going on Top Chef?
You know what happened? I actually long time ago, but besides not like Top Chef, but I think a different show, I actually auditioned for it, and I made a dish, and one of the judges, like the auditioning judge, was like, he was Asian too. He was Chinese, or not Chinese, but East Asian. And then he had a bite of my noodles, and he was choking. He was like, oh, it's so spicy. Oh, water. Oh, so I didn't make the cut. But I don't know how, I didn't think it was that spicy. And that was a long time ago. But ever since that, I was just like, and I participated as a judge on Bobby Flay. And I feel like I judged something else too. But, I'm still kind of active with that community in terms of food media. But I think I don't really feel like doing that. I rather just spend time making the food, making sure my restaurants are running smoothly, answering customer complaints, in a very matter-of-fact voice I usually do. But that's really where I like to spend my time. It's just make sure everything goes smoothly.
Well, those of us that enjoy the restaurant appreciate you sticking to the restaurants over the cooking shows, but maybe someday we'll see you on those again. Jason, that's it for the questions. We appreciate this so much. Thank you so much for
it was fun
being here today. Okay.
Yeah, no, it was fun, guys. Thanks for sticking around so long. And it's a rare opportunity to have people from the alma mater here, and appreciate your time. And happy to get back to the community.
Okay, thank you. And a final note for the attendees. We encourage you to go to xianfoods.com/book. That's a great place to pick up the cookbook. And we definitely hope that you'll consider buying the cookbook. That's the source of this fantastic recipe. But other than that, I think this has been a great evening, and thank you so much, Jason, for being here. And we all look forward to being able to get back at Xi'an Famous Foods in person, hopefully soon.
Anytime, everyone's welcome. Have a good night and stay safe.